Welcome to Autism Knows No Borders, a podcast where people connected to autism inspire change and build community. Together with the Global Autism Project, I'm your host, Rachel Harmon, a professional with over a decade of experience in the field of autism services, outreach, and advocacy. How can better education and training lead to safer, more inclusive communities for autistic individuals? This episode is part 2 of my conversation with Jennifer Kaufman, a former special education school principal and the grandmother of a boy on the spectrum. We discuss what it takes to create communities where autistic individuals are understood and supported, from the classroom to emergency situations. We also touch on best practices in education for autistic students, common misconceptions about autism in education, Jennifer's training for first responders to support neurodiverse individuals in high-stress situations, creating inclusive environments through universal design, the importance of building strong collaborative relationships among families, schools, and communities, and tips for grandparents of autistic children. In this episode, discover what's possible when family, school, and community unite. And now, I present you Jennifer Kaufman. All right, well, let's switch gears, Jennifer. Let's talk about your experience in the education system.
Mm-hmm.
As principal, what did you learn about kind of best practice with helping autistic students succeed?
You alluded to it before about presuming competence. And really that is so very important in the core of it, because if you put the limits on a child and your expectations of a child are that they are not going to be able to do something, it really increases the chances of them not being able to do that thing. You're putting on the limits and the stops before they even begin. So presuming confidence and not setting limits to what they can accomplish, we see it again and again, and it's something that the team and I would always discuss, because a child might come into our school and we just assume that there are these certain limits, and then they surpass them. And, a child who we might not think will ever speak verbally, and 2 years later, they're talking and chatting up a storm. It's nice to be surprised that way, but from the start, we should understand that there are no limits to what our kids can accomplish.
Yeah. We hear it all the time on this podcast, too, with some autistic adults who come on the show and they talk about what they heard specifically from doctors or teachers when they were younger about what they couldn't do, that they would never be able to do. And so they kind of took it upon themselves to prove those people wrong in a way, which is, it's a strength to turn it around like that. But yeah, that's absolutely right. I think that's really what sets apart an excellent program from just a mediocre one.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And I wish that all programs would start from that point, because it really is. I like to say to parents that this isn't some kind of race to a common finish line. This is really a journey that each child is on, and that finish line, there is no finish line. It can move, they can succeed, they can really surpass whatever your own expectations are. So just abandon those expectations, because they will surpass them if given the opportunity.
Yeah. Amazing. So can you talk about the importance of the relationship between educators and families, and how people on both sides can work to build that to be strong?
Yeah, so that part,
Build to strengthen it, sorry.
that partnership is absolutely crucial to the success of a child. The 6 or 7 hours a day that kids are in school, and therapists, educators, teachers, paraprofessionals, everyone is working to support that child in their goals. If that is not carried through at home, it's a much more difficult process. Having parents that are engaged and having parents that understand that follow through at home is crucial to a child's success. is something that we try to convey. And it's difficult because, parents might have multiple children. Might have multiple children who are neurodiverse, and they have a lot on their plate, right, between work and other relationships. And a school understanding that and providing strategies for parents to be able to carry out at home what we're trying to do at school is important. So it's just has to be a collaborative process with a lot of good communication.
Hmm. So, what would you say to an educator who is trying to encourage parents to be more involved, but they just keep hitting roadblocks? Like, what's a way around it?
Well, what we do is we ask the parent what type of communication works for you. Because some parents like daily communication, other parents might want an email every other day or once a week, and trying to structure that communication process in a way that works. Some people love text messages. We have parents that you text them, you hear right back. But if you send them an email, you might not hear back at all. Finding out what works for them to make it as easy as possible, and then making sure that as an educator, you're keeping them on the loop, you're providing the information that will be helpful to them.
Hmm. In your experience, what are some misconceptions about autism that still exist today within the education system?
Well, I think that the misconceptions within the education system are similar to the misconceptions outside of education. I think that thinking it's something that will be cured if there's some kind of therapy, or this is not something that needs to be cured. This is just, it's like a different operating system. It's somebody who just needs a different type of support and interacts with the world differently. It's a misunderstanding of what autism is. Thinking that if there's a behavior, that it's something that needs to be corrected or there needs to be some kind of discipline involved. And that's just not the case because, again, a child giving you a hard time, it's that they're having a hard time, and looking at, well, what's motivating this behavior, and what was the antecedent that worked up to that. Was there some kind of denied access to something? Was there a something the child was affected by that's causing this behavior? And there might be teachers with less understanding that just think, well, that child needs to be disciplined. There needs to be, something needs to be taken away from them, or they need to be told no, or they get angry at them. And it's just the worst possible thing, right?
Yeah. I know there's a lot of work that needs to be done in the US and around the world with more training for teachers who are maybe in a general ed classroom and have maybe a handful of students that are autistic or who have special needs, but they themselves do not have the right support or the right training to provide the appropriate education for those students. So it's not necessarily their fault in a way, like there's something
Hmm.
kind of broken in the system.
Yeah, that training piece is so important in a lot of sectors because I work with first responders to give them that kind of training. I work with various organizations and companies to give them that training so that they can support their employees and their clients. Because, we're not even talking from a clinical aspect. We don't need to understand autism from a very high level. We just need to have some basic strategies so that when we come across a student or an individual that is on the spectrum, we know that we need to give this person a little bit more time to respond because their ability to process information is just going to take a little longer, right? Simple strategy. But if you do not know that because you haven't been trained that way, then you don't know what you don't know.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So from your experience with training first responders, what are some examples of situations that could lead to something harmful happening? And what advice do you give in those situations?
Well, I mean, I know there's been a lot of instances in the news where a situation between a police officer and someone who turns out later to be autistic doesn't end well, sometimes ends tragically. And what I try to impart in my trainings is that autism, there are certain identifiers. We talk about the difference between somebody who is under the influence versus somebody who might be neurodivergent. If somebody doesn't answer you during a traffic stop, it doesn't mean they're being defiant. It means that they may be processing the information, or it may be that they're overwhelmed. And we talk about strategies to reduce that overwhelm and strategies to communicate. Does that person have a communication board of some kind? Does that person have the blue envelope? Are you familiar with the blue envelope program?
No. Can you describe?
Sure. Some states have this, some towns have this. It's a blue envelope and it stays in the glove box of the car. And if an autistic person gets pulled over, they can take this envelope out and it has their, license and registration, maybe insurance card in there. One side of the envelope says this person has autism and this is what you can expect. And the opposite side of the card says you've been pulled over by a police officer. This is what you should do. And
Oh.
stay calm. It's okay to give your name and give them this envelope. So it's a very simple strategy that can help alleviate some misunderstandings. Because right away,
Mhm.
it's a identifier that this is not your typical situation, and someone is not just being difficult by not giving you their name or their license. It's that they have some challenges that need to be supported.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that a lot. And I also understand that in a stressful situation on the officer's side, how even if they have this training, their instinct might be to protect themselves, right? And so if they
Right.
are interacting with someone who they perceive to be defiant, like they need to just take a pause and
Hmm.
somehow under the stress go back to this training that they've received and kind of file through, all right, is this one of those situations where this person might be neurodivergent? Like how can they kind of react so quickly? Well, not react so quickly, I should say,
Right.
under the stress.
That's the challenge because, of course, police officers have the absolute most difficult job, and to have to, on the fly, determine is this person a threat and are they being difficult, dangerous to themselves, to other people, to me, versus this person just needs a little more time. This person communicates differently. And I've asked them, five different questions. And on the fifth question, they told me their name. Like, what is that? And
Mhm.
what that is, as I explain in my workshops, is that that's autism, that's neurodiversity, and that's something that we need to be patient with once we identify somebody as being autistic.
Hey, Rachel here. I'd like to thank one of our listeners, Siva96, for reviewing the show on Apple Podcasts. They said, quote, highly recommend this podcast. All speakers are amazing and informed with diverse backgrounds. It really does bring the community together, and I loved hearing from speakers globally. I can't wait to continue to listen to more episodes. End quote. Thank you for the kind words. 5-star reviews like yours help us to continue spreading autism awareness and acceptance around the world. If, like Siva96, you're finding value in Autism Knows No Borders, please leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. And now, back to the conversation. What changes have you seen in departments after they've received your training?
We do surveys after our trainings, and in some towns, it's 100% of the officers will say that they've left with more knowledge and more in their toolbox to help support people with autism in their communities. I always like after a training, I'll have officers come up to me to really ask very specific questions. I remember one officer talking about a school bus full of kids where there was one kid with autism and he was having a big behavior. And he said to me, do I take all the other kids off the bus or do we escort that child off the bus? And, we had a big conversation about it. And I just think that our police officers, our first responders are coming across situations regularly that involve autistic individuals and making sure that they have the tools, not just like video trainings, but really tools where they can ask questions of a person and they can, like, I always have them emailing me with questions afterwards because as situations come up, they need answers. I recently saw a little boy and he was lost. And I was sort of watching from a distance and I was seeing the police officers give this child, offer him like treats, snacks. I think it was a lollipop. And, I talked to my first responders that many kids with autism have allergies or they have swallowing issues, choking issues, and providing them with snacks and treats. It sounds like a great way to calm somebody down, but if you have autism, it could really cause a choking issue or it could trigger an allergy. So those are things that we talk about.
Right. Yeah, there's so many specific needs that really are also just independent to whoever that child is. So some also might have sensory needs that under intense, not interrogation, but being confronted by someone who maybe has like bright flashing lights because of the car behind them or
Hmm.
loud beeping sounds, like maybe they are also reacting from overstimulation.
Sure.
So kind of, yeah, just being aware of that as well.
Interestingly, I also go onto college campuses and speak with their security teams because many students who attend various universities are autistic or neurodiverse. And there's the additional challenge that, especially in the States, once someone hits the age of 18, you can't reach out to their parents with personal information without their prior authorization. So, no, we talk a lot about if somebody's struggling on campus, who do you reach out to if you can't reach out to their parents? And we talk about setting up systems where there might be a safe person, a friend, a relative, if they're not comfortable having their parents called, and putting a system like that in place to support somebody who is on campus with autism.
Hmm. Right. And those might be some young adults, older adolescents who are really learning their voice and advocacy and
Yes,
disclosing that they're autistic. Maybe they didn't have to before because teachers just knew. And so it's a new skill that they're having to learn as well.
absolutely. And they're on their own and independent, perhaps for the first time in a dorm.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing the work that you're doing to kind of bring more awareness. And it's really making a difference because you can see it firsthand.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I hope so.
So, looking ahead and thinking about inclusion and acceptance, what are some areas that you think communities can improve to help autistic people feel more a part of society?
I think that a lot of events that take place are very loud, are very multi-sensory, a lot of people, a lot of I'm thinking sound particularly because I myself am bothered by very loud sounds. And creating environments where neurodiversity is taken into consideration and where not separate necessarily, but areas where someone can go where maybe it is a little more quiet, where the lights are lower. A lot of movie theaters around my area, I think AMC is actually one of them, that whole branch. They do sensory friendly movie showings. And on a certain day of the week, you can go and the lights are up and the sound is down, and you can watch a movie without being absolutely bombarded by the sound and light. So, maybe you don't like to sit in the dark in a movie theater, and so there's an opportunity where the lights are up a little bit. I think just taking into consideration neurodiversity and creating environments that are just so much more inclusive of everybody. It's important. It's
Mm-hmm.
important. That's what I would like to see happen. Because you know what? That idea of universal design, which stemmed from the idea of the curb cut, the little dips in the sidewalk where they were originally created for wheelchair users to come off the sidewalk into the street without having to navigate a curve. And what happened is over time, strollers, mothers pushing baby carriages were able to use those curb cuts. People on rollerblades, people pushing a cart could use a curb cut. And that type of universal design really benefits everybody ultimately. And so creating environments where we take neurodivergence and autism into consideration will ultimately help everybody, because sometimes when you're not diagnosed with something, these things still may bother you. And it's nice to be able to attend events where your preferences are included.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that because, I mean, personally, also, I've just become more sensitive to lights. Like,
Mm,
if I walk into a supermarket or a store that has really obnoxious, like fluorescent lights,
yeah.
I want to wear my sunglasses.
Hmm.
Um, probably wouldn't even go inside. I've not gone in places because of that, because it's just too much. And I'm not
See? Yeah.
autistic, but like I imagine what that would be like for an autistic person who had hypersensitivity to that.
So I can tell you a quick story along those lines. My husband and I were on vacation and we went to a Japanese steakhouse, where they cook on the tables.
Hmm.
And this particular room had 8 tables, 8 chefs, 8 groups of people having dinner. And all of the chefs were banging their utensils on the cooktop and singing songs and all at different times. And as I was sitting there, I got very emotionally overwhelmed. It was like I couldn't process information anymore. And my husband looked over at me. I was all teary and I said, I have to leave. And he didn't understand it really. But, as accommodating as he is, we left. We didn't even have dinner. And when I got outside, it just occurred to me, this is what my grandson and this is what people who have high sensory needs, are really affected sensory wise, experience. And they're unable to say, I need to get out of here,
Hmm.
right?
Right. Yeah.
Or they might just get up and leave and no one
Yeah.
knows understands why. And it really
Hmm.
just hit home that we need to take into consideration the environments that all of us are in. So,
Yeah.
that's my hope. It would have been nice if there was a quiet room that I could
Right.
have had my dinner in, that maybe was one chef doing his thing with the utensils on the table. But
Yeah.
8 of them in one room was a lot. And I just, my system just could not deal with that. I had never experienced anything like that before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's tricky, right? Because you want to create environments, maybe assuming that a neurodivergent person should be able to enjoy it as well. Like if they want to go
Yes.
eat that kind of food or buy something from this store. And at the same time, you want to create this experience for people who can or who want to enjoy it. So where's the balance, right? Like maybe if
Right.
it's special hours, they put on a sign on the door like it's going to be loud in here from 7 to 8 p.m. If you want quiet time, come before or after or something. That way, at least people can choose.
Right. I'm sitting here as we're just discussing this. I'm thinking about my husband because he has difficulty hearing. He has hearing loss in one ear, and we avoid certain restaurants because it's difficult to hear because the volume is high. So again, that universal design and taking into consideration various people and various sensory needs when we're designing spaces could be like a great goal for the future.
Yeah. All right, Jennifer, let's close with one last question. Bringing it back to your experience as a grandmother, what advice would you give to other grandparents out there whose grandchildren have just been diagnosed?
Learn all that you can, but most importantly, follow your adult child's lead and respect their position as the expert in their own child and present yourself as a resource. Showing up is the most important thing you can do.
Yeah, amazing. Well said. Good summary of our conversation.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us and sharing your insights. I think it's really valuable for people on both sides of the family equation to understand where everyone is coming from. And that really, like you said, if the common goal is collaboration to make sure this child succeeds, then like what can we all do to work together in a respectful way so that they feel supported?
Thank you. Yes, you said it very accurately.
Thank you so much. Thanks for tuning in to Autism Knows No Borders. If you enjoy this podcast and you'd like to support our mission, please take a moment to rate the show and leave a review. You'll be helping us to continue spreading autism awareness and acceptance around the world. Thanks for listening. Take care.